Hello, everybody. Welcome to another video that I don't choose to make, but feel like I need to make. Yesterday, we learned the sad news on May the 1st that Canadian singer-songwriter, music legend Gordon Lightfoot passed away at home, and it was not a shock per se. He just recently canceled several weeks worth of tour dates for the foreseeable future, and he had been in poor health, for the past several years. Um, Long career of smoking and heavy drinking, and the rock and roll lifestyle catch up to everybody. So, but nonetheless, it's a sad day in the music world. As many of you know, I wouldn't say I'm a mega Gordon Lightfoot fan, but I'm a fairly fairly decent fan of Gordon Lightfoot. He holds the distinction in my life as being the first concert that I ever attended back in 2009, I believe, and I went with my mom and dad, and we had great seats. I was a freshman in high school. I didn't have a lot of expectation for the show. Um, my mom and dad are both big Gordon Lightfoot fans. I mean, really big Gordon Lightfoot fans. Dad had several studio albums. I think mom had a couple as well. There were compilations that we played often in the house. My dad was very big in making CDs off of Napster, so he would make mixes for songs with CDs with Gordon Lightfoot's music on it. Christian Island, Alberta Bound, Early Morning Rain, Spanish Moss were all commonplace in my house when we would sit and have a meal together. We'd pop in one of those homemade Gordon Lightfoot CDs that Dad made, or any of the number of compilations and studio albums that my parents owned. So Gordon was a mainstay musically in my house growing up. It took me a long time to fully appreciate him. I know originally his voice didn't fully do it for me. He had the really thick Canadian kind of lilt in his voice, but kind of had that folk tradition kind of voice. And as the older I got, the more I realized how clean his voice was, and just how it matched so well with his music. And like I said, he was my first concert. And then, as you might recall, last year I did a video where my dad and I were able to see Gordon Lightfoot again. It had a couple of times been canceled. I think he had fallen and hurt a hip, and so we were able to finally see him in February of 2022, I believe, and come to be the last time that he would venture into my neck of the woods here in Virginia. So I'm very glad I got to go to that. The audience that night was not great, but Dad and I were about 3 or 4 rows from the front, and it was just great to share that experience with him. I mean, Gordon's been covered by everybody. I mean, people like Bob Dylan and John Prine, two of my top songwriters and artists, held high admiration for Gordon Lightfoot. And obviously, the country of Canada just held him in a incredibly high regard. He was like one of their patron saints of songwriting, and reasonably so. I mean, his music was fully Canadian. I mean, it represented a lot more than just Canada, but I mean, listen to a song like the Canadian Railroad Trilogy, or like I said, Alberta Bound, 10 Degrees and Colder, songs like that, if you're in Canada, you relate to them. They were working man songs. They were about the laborers. They were about the railroads. They were about, hard love, things that Gordon Lightfoot lived through. Like I said, he was a heavy drinker, as a younger man, and he flat out would say he was not a good husband to his first two wives. And there's a great documentary about Gordon Lightfoot on streaming, if you want to check that out, done in the last couple of years. His last studio effort, Solo, came out in 2020, and had a really great song on there called um, "Fine as Fine Can Be." Um, so I mean, he was working up until the end. Um, no, it was called "Sweet as Sweet Can Be." It wasn't "Fine as Fine Can Be." That's an older song, but anyway, all I have to say, he was still doing sporadic albums here and there, but really where he found his love, it looked like, was touring. He was touring all over the place. I mean, he, like I said, just canceled dates, and he's 84 years old when he passed away. But anyway, all that to say, I don't want to keep rambling here, but I wanted to do this little tribute for Gordon Lightfoot. You know, he left a great body of work, well respected. Like I said, Bob Dylan looked at him as an archetype and how to write a song. John Prine did a great video cast on the House of Strombo a few years back, where he sings the song "Far From Me," and Gordon Lightfoot's in the audience, and his eyes are closed, and he's thinking back to when he first heard John Prine back in the 70s. So he influenced so many people. If you want to learn how to write a song, listen to "If You Could Read My Mind." I mean, that song in itself um, is just poetry. So all I have to say, it's kind of an end of an era to me. Like I said, it's the first concert I ever went to, and he really meant a lot to my mom and dad for sure, and now he means a lot to me as well. So um, let me know, your thoughts on Gordon Lightfoot, and we'll talk to you on the next video.